Steve, I regret to inform you yet again we did not win a Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah, well,
I thought our expose
there's
on
some athletes in the Hall of Fame that's probably a bigger injustice than that.
yeah,
So
that's
all
fair.
works all
That's
works out.
fair. I thought our expose on Penn State parking prices maybe
It would
could
have been
have.
the thing that put us over the top.
Yeah,
Did we submit?
I don't think we submitted. I don't know
Well,
how
then
that
there's
process
an
works.
issue there too.
Yeah, it's on the owner's fault. Name of this podcast that did not win a Pulitzer Prize is called Stuff Summer Says with
Steve,
Steve. It's a big episode for us. In part because this is our annual early May tradition of guessing some 2020 now 2026 kick times, but also because we are joined by Tribune the Trib Live's Joe Starkey for a great conversation about the Pittsburgh media market and also the little bit of morsel of news that he was involved in the Penn State world recently.
yeah,
So take a listen to our interview with Joe. Then we will be back to make some picks. Steve, we are joined today by a guest that's been in the news a little bit in the news, I guess, in the Penn State sphere, even though he's Pittsburgh based, because he asked one simple question. They ask one simple question, and they get this viral soundbite that we have to ask him about eventually. But we have some other questions before we get there. Our guest today, columnist, writer for the Tribune Live, host of a radio show with Bob Pompiani on the 93.7 The Fan, Mr. Joe Starkey. Joe, how are you?
I'm good, Darian. It's a
Hey.
pleasure to be with you and Steve. I was telling Steve I haven't seen him in like decades, and he looks younger than he did the last time I saw him. He's
Please-
like Benjamin Button. Is that the guy that went in reverse?
Please don't
That's
inflate
the
his
guy?
ego. Please don't. We don't.
Yeah, don't
we
do it.
don't
He
do
doesn't
that.
do that.
We don't
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that here. We
We
don't.
don't do
We
that.
don't
Right.
inflate
There
his
you go.
ego here. Joe, we had your contemporary colleague on Mike DeCourcy a few weeks back, and I think of the Pittsburgh media sphere as a tiny space in a lot of ways, but it's also become a crowded space in a lot of ways, both from people like you and also people like us that might have a podcast that kind of start out. In an era of all of this kind of competition, how do you stand out with how you write?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess part of the thing that helps me is having been around for a while. So I get sort of a historical perspective on things. And then I guess it's, what do you do when the lights turn on? And then I have to deliver, and I'm doing something interesting at the Pittsburgh Trib, which is not just longer form columns, but they call it a cup of Joe, where it's just a quick take on things. And that's what I think, people digest better these days. You know what I mean? Is the shorter, quicker, for lack of a better term, hot takes. And then I feel like I'm versatile enough to mix that in with, longer pieces. I did a piece where I went up to Mike McCarthy's house at 1137 Greenfield Avenue. When he mentioned that that's where he grew up, I was curious, what did the people who live inside that house think? And got a really good story on that. So you just hope, your ability combined with your experience and work ethic all add up to offer something different.
When did you realize that you have to differentiate by going shorter, or what process was that for you?
Well, I didn't want to used to go shorter. I remember in my first stint at the Trib, they wanted me to do short columns, and I didn't want to do them. But I think I've evolved to the point where I think those need to be mixed in, and they're fun to do. And like I said, this day and age, I think that people digest them more. You know what I mean? That shorter is better in a lot of instances, and sometimes that's the case in column writing. So it took me a while, I think, to realize that, but for sure, I think I've reached that place.
Joe, it seems like Pittsburgh is a market of substance over style. I mean, there's been quirky through the years. I mean, Myron is super talented, but the people that thrive there and have longevity there have substance. They are curious. They are talented. What do you think has been the key to your being able to keep doing it well and doing it for so long?
And that's a good question too, and it's sort of the same answer in doing it for so long. I guess. I guess still having the spark. I think some people just lose the spark. You know what I mean? and I've kept it. I just love sports. That's A. And then B, I think, again, the experience just factors in there, where I've been around long enough where I think I can deliver a perspective that others who haven't been around that long can deliver. You know what I mean? I've covered the Penguins as a beat writer. I've been around all the teams. I don't go around the teams so much anymore, hardly at all, really. But I've been around them and I've covered them on a regular basis. And I think that's probably the best thing I've got going for me right now, is that sort of perspective.
Well, I remember from the Penguins when you started, it was new to you, I think I remember, but man, the stories that came out of it, because you were so prepared and so curious and kind of looked at it in a different angle, that seemed to serve the readers in a way, that curiosity that you brought to it. How much of your personality do you think shapes what you do?
Well, that's a great question, because when I taught writing at Waynesburg University, and I might do that again, I always told people, just be yourself. And I always hear that in broadcasting too. I forget who I was talking to recently, but the idea was, and coaching as well, by the way, is you got to coach, write, talk on the air to your personality. And if people like that, great. Hopefully, most of them will. And if they don't, then you probably have a problem if most of them don't like it. But that's the only way to do it, is to write about things you like to write about and have your personality shine through it. And it's so funny in writing classes when I would say to people, just write about something that you like, or write about something that's important to you. I would ask them, tell me about the biggest role model in your life. Give me 200 words, not a lot. That's a very short amount. But the stuff that would come out was incredible. And then if you give them, a generic assignment, go cover something and write about it, then it wouldn't be of nearly the same quality. So I think, luckily for me, I have choices of what I can write about, and I can find things that I like to write about, and I think that just is a better product.
Thank you.
When you sit down to do your column, I feel like you've got time, so to speak, right? You
Yeah.
put research, etc. But when you're sitting down with Bob to do the show on the air, it's live. For you, is that a left brain, right brain? How does that work your brain, and why is that so? Why do you enjoy the radio show just as much?
Sometimes more. It's just, it's more off the cuff. And you talk about injecting your personality. That's always going to be way more when it's live on the radio than it is in any other form, really. And there's not a ton of planning that goes into that. There's a general outline, and then so many times we just go, off on tangents, and there goes the show in that direction, even though we thought it was going to go in this direction. And part of it is being quick on your feet and just adapting. And then working with a guy like Bob, is great, because he's just very laid back and very natural and very good and very popular, I might add, which helps our ratings.
What was your chemistry building process like with Bob?
So easy. Much more difficult with Ron Cook, although it wasn't his fault. But at the beginning, it was very difficult, because we had been sort of rivals in the column sphere and had to just sort of do the early dance steps and learn how to be around each other. Whereas with Bob, one of you guys could go do a show with Bob tomorrow and you'd feel at home right away. It's just so easy, because he's laid back, he's smart, he's fun, he's funny, he's adaptable, creative. So it couldn't have been easier, really.
In terms of what you guys do on the radio, what resonates most? What generates? I mean, controversy generates callers, people complaining, but is it a Steelers town, clearly still, and everybody else?
Steelers. When I started with you a million years ago at the Trib, even though I was writing, what was I writing? High schools at the time in West Virginia. I remember somebody saying, when in doubt, maybe it was Dave Ailes, our old boss, when in doubt, write about the Steelers. When in further doubt, write about the Steelers quarterback. And that's truer than ever today. And it's legit. Like, it's not just a fallback. It's planned. It's like, I compared it yesterday to when I was growing up in Buffalo, and Jim Kelly was deciding whether to come to the Bills or stay in the USFL. As a fan, that's all I wanted to hear about 24 hours a day. And I feel like this Steelers quarterback situation right now, even though, we get some loud voices, that it's by far not the majority. The ratings show that people want to hear about the Steelers and talk about the quarterbacks. And that falls right in line with what I want to do anyway. The Steelers sell. Yes, it's a football town. That's just the bottom line.
So can you talk us through the Terry Smith interview a little bit and how it happened from your side? I watched on video as it was happening, and the way the camera angles are, I thought when you asked the question and he started to respond with specifics about the offense not being there for Drew, I don't know that you twitched, but it seemed like you were like, oh, did he just say that? So
Right.
so what did it sound like? How did it play out from your side?
Well, you're right about that. My eyes widened and I looked at my producer, the esteemed Austin City Limits Bechtold, and well, to backtrack, the interview came about because Bob had talked to Terry and then asked him if he would come on the air with us, and he did. And then, knowing what I know about Terry, I thought we might get some truth bombs, but man, we got it early and heavy when he basically said the offense didn't fit Drew Aller. And then I think later on I was like, and this is the way I felt for a long time. I was like, am I crazy or was he handcuffed there basically? And I don't even know how good I think he is. I think he never got the chance to show it though. Like somebody just to tell him, go play, be a gunslinger. You get picked off, don't worry about it. Throw the same pass the next time, not to the other team, but the same. I mean, take the risky pass the next time. Just go play. Go be Drew Aller. And the only time, like Terry said, that it ever felt like he got to do that was when they fell way behind, like against Oregon, where then you just sling it around, and then it's like, oh my God, what could this be if they did that intentionally at the beginnings of games? So that's how that came about. Bob got the interview, and then you could tell early on that this was going to be really good. And I remember getting in Austin's headsets and saying, "Man, this is going to go viral when you put this up on our website. This is great stuff."
Yeah, it wasn't just the one question. He kept adding on to it, and you guys followed up. But your first question was, what was it? Like you said, you kind of deferential to your side. Well, I don't know if it's just me, but it seemed like this was going on. You said the show's kind of a little me freewheeling. Do you think about questions in that sense? You know he's going to have truth bombs, possibly. You know you want to elicit them. Is that how you wanted to get the question out of him by sitting back a little bit and letting him come to you, or how do you
Yeah,
think about that stuff?
for sure. And that's always been the way in interviews. And my first question, you could call it, I guess, a direct or a hard question. I think always getting back to brevity is best. I think it was, I'm trying to recall, or maybe it was Bob's question where he talked about how Drew Aller may have underachieved there. And why was that? And Terry just simply came back with, and I'm paraphrasing, the offense wasn't built for him. And then as the conversation went on, I wanted to preface the other question with an opinion first and have him go off that. Like, I feel like I'm crazy here, but when I watch this guy play, it just feels like he's constantly afraid to make a mistake. He's constantly checking down. He's constantly conservative, in his reads, things like that. And he confirmed that. And then Bob said, well, why was that? And Terry said, I wasn't the coach here at the time. So, that was a clear shot to me at James Franklin. Not, it's just it's just truth, his truth. Like I also said with Terry, he's being brutally honest here, but there's a difference between being honest and accurate. You can say your feelings. That doesn't mean you're right. I don't know if he was right. I think whether or not he was right, that story is still to be told. We may look back someday and say, wow, look at Drew Aller in the pros. What the hell happened to him at Penn State? Or we may say maybe Franklin had good reasons for holding him back. You know what I mean? But Terry was very, very honest, and that's what always makes for a great interview.
Thank you.
The juxtaposition between the last PA college quarterback draft pick by the Steelers, what is the difference between Kenny Pickett and Drew Aller in terms of the media perception in Pittsburgh right now?
Post-draft media perception?
Yeah, from whatever, I forget whatever your draft Kenny was.
Well, it's definitely different because Pickett was a Pitt guy, and also Pickett was a first-round selection. So Aller's more talented. There's no doubt about that. But a lot of it is where you're picked. Aller, we don't even know if he'll be ahead of Will Howard. If Rodgers comes back, I don't know where Aller will be. Probably third string, although maybe second string. I don't know. With Pickett, it was just simply a matter of time. When's this guy going to be the quarterback? And some were skeptical, but for the most part, people were pumped. And of course, that just increased when he had a pretty good end to the year where he beat the Ravens and the Raiders on last minute drives. And then he had the perfect preseason that turned out not to foreshadow his career. But post draft, I would say there was a lot more fire and expectation around Kenny Pickett than there is around Aller.
What is the overall Pittsburgh maybe media view of Penn State?
In terms of
football in particular, like I think Pittsburgh is a NFL town first and foremost, and I think that we know that. But where does it sit with Pitt football comparatively, and then what is it feels like there's not a castle on the hill, but a era of expectation that comes from Penn State people that Penn State's better than Pitt, all of those things. What's the Pittsburgh media view of that?
It's hard to talk about that as if there's one view.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of different ones. I think generally, and I can speak for myself, we talk more Pitt? Yeah, we talk more Pitt than Penn State because we're in Pittsburgh, but I'm also keenly aware, and anybody should be, that there's a huge Penn State alumni base in Western Pennsylvania. So make no mistake, especially when the topics are hot, like the Steelers drafting Drew Aller or the whole James Franklin situation last year. There's also going to be Penn State topics that come up. But I would say, it's Pitt first and Penn State second as far as what we're addressing. Particularly, I'm on the Pitt flagship station, so I'm going to talk some Pitt for sure. But generally speaking, I think, do both outlets still cover Penn State regularly? I don't even know. The Post-Gazette and the Trib, or no?
I don't think the Post-Gazette has one. I don't think Chris really does a lot of Penn State stuff anymore. So no.
Yeah, so I think it's probably more Pitt, although I don't know that both travel with Pitt either.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I think people, if they're not aware, they should be very aware that there's intense Penn State interest in Western Pennsylvania as well.
I got a question, bigger market question, or the market question. You said the two outlets are this week, right? What the Post-Gazette has changed. How will that change, do you think, sports coverage and competition or not, right, in the market, and how that serves sports fans?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the Trib side, Jennifer Bertetto, our CEO, was very clear that it's good for readers and good for the region to have two competing newspapers. So I think that's only good. Now, how it affects or what it's going to look like moving forward, I don't know. It seems like not a lot of high school people were retained. I know Mike White was by the Post-Gazette, but it seemed like a lot of their other high school people weren't. Does that mean the new owners are going to de-emphasize high school sports? I don't know. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what their travel's going to look like. How many people, they send a ton of people on the road with the Steelers. Trib sends people on the road with the Steelers. Trib didn't send people so much during the season on the road with the Penguins. These are still tough times in some ways, or at least times where you have to be smart with how you allocate your resources, But I'm really happy to be back at the Trib. I feel like it's a very stable environment. I think Jen is awesome at the top. And it's a well-run, well-organized place, and they just let me do my thing. So I appreciate that. But it's gonna be good for the region to have competing sports sections.
Last one from me, I think. How did the competition shape what you do through your career? How did having someone to compete against
Well,
make you better or challenge you?
always made me better. And when I was at the Trib covering the Penguins, it was me against Dave Molinari and Dejan Kovacevic. So it was like going against two heavyweights, so I was the underdog. So it motivated me every single day to try to keep that beat in good shape. Then, as you start writing columns, I don't feel competition so much anymore. The competition for me, the way I felt it in the old days was around um, breaking stories. Who's breaking the stories? I don't even think people know or care half the time who breaks stories, because once one breaks, it gets picked up by 10,000 media outlets immediately. But you remember the feeling, Steve, when you used to have a story and it used to be in the paper and you were the one who broke it and everybody knew it. It was just way different then. So I don't really think about competition anymore. It's not a factor for me anymore. It's just I do my thing and other columnists do theirs.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Joe. Well, thank you for joining us. Where can people find you and all your stuff and tune into you throughout the week?
Thanks, man. It's 937thefan.com. It's where you'll find me with Bob, unless Bob doesn't show up and it's just his cardboard cutout on a given day, which happens. And then
Nice is there one of you? Is there one of you just in case?
But I'm usually there, so they don't need. And then there's one, or there's the website triblive.com, which is where you can find my column. And I appreciate you guys. Who's 22 in the background there? That helmet.
It's a Capoletti helmet it's a made
legendary.
Of Capoletti. Yeah.
Legendary, and something for Joey's one of the great sports movies of all time.
The book is somewhere in this menagerie back here.
I love that. And my favorite Penn State player of all time is Shane Conlon with the neck roll for the Buffalo Bills. God, I love that guy.
It was good. I'm sure you were excited when he showed up at the draft.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I love that guy. And Postlesny for the Bills wasn't bad either, I'll say that.
Also as thick of a neck without the neck roll.
Right. Without a neck, basically.
Yeah, correct. Correct. All right, Joe. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, you, Joe. Guys. I appreciate it. Good luck there, Darian and Steve. Thank you.
Steve, I really loved his answer. Particularly, I had a question about the two newspapers in Pittsburgh. I really loved his answer about the competition and how that's important for readers. I think that would have been a dark day in Pittsburgh had the Post-Gazette, shut down. And obviously, it might not necessarily be what it was moving forward. But the fact that it's still there, the fact that there isn't just a singular voice, I think Pittsburgh, as Joe alluded to, will benefit from that. And I enjoyed Joe talking about competition. I think that's one of the first people we've had on the podcast that's like, this is a competitive thing for me, and it's important to be competitive, and it's important to also learn. And I thought that was, unique and good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think it benefits readers too, because it makes you better when you're that person who's covering a team and some other people are covering it from another outlet. You're checking that day online anymore, what they got and you didn't, and it's a fun feeling when you get a story that somebody else doesn't have, and it's a learning experience when you figure out, okay, where did that person get that and why don't I have it? And I think that competition, that fire that works on the media members benefits the fans. So Pittsburgh's, I think it's good they're still, you can argue the health of them and how they're going to do stuff, but that two main options exist is a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I thought Joe talking about the radio show, because that's actually more so what I know Joe from, but at least just kind of following along there. I thought that was interesting to get that behind the scenes peek. I liked his comments about Bob, because I think a lot of the things that he said about Bob come through, and I think Joe's personality there on our interview with him, like that felt like the same Joe that we get on the radio show each and every time, and I appreciate that as always. Cool. All right. Before we get to picks, there's a little bit of, I wouldn't say breaking news, interesting news. You called them the world touring women's volleyball team. Is that
Penn State? Yeah, apparently.
Basically, they today, in addition to announcing a few weeks back that they'll have a match at Wrigley Field, today, kind of out of the blue, nowhere, came an interesting announcement. So Penn State's women's team in August will take part in the Spikes Under the Lights, which is a, quote, first of its kind showcase at AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys, in Arlington, Texas on August 27th. Here's what this is. It is a 4-team tournament. It is completely an exhibition because it will happen all in one night. They will only play 2 sets of 3 or best of 3, as opposed to regular season playing best of 5. It will not count. But the interesting thing above all is that there's a $1 million purse essentially on the line. Each team of the 4 teams, which are Penn State, Nebraska, Florida, and SMU, each get $200,000 to start, and then the winner of the tournament will get another $200,000 for their team. This is by far one of the most fascinating things I've ever heard of. Like, I am so interested in this because it's an exhibition. This will not count for season records. You have Nebraska and Penn State who will now play in the regular season at in-state college later this year. A part of this, like, I think this is by far one of the best things that's happened to maybe volleyball in quite some time, even if it is an exhibition. Credit to whoever thought of this idea. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it feels like a preseason version of the Crown thing for men's basketball.
Good idea
in some ways. And it's, if this is what you're going to do to find revenue for places or create experiences, and it's kind of like a lot of things we have. I mean, again, me and my nonprofit hat, right? They tell people they don't want to do recurring gifts. They want experiences. They want events. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do you in the regular season, but we can give you this special event that people can get geeked about. And, great for SMU to be, I guess, involved in hosting it, or however it is. It's, it's got to be like kind of a home team there to make Dallas make sense, which I wasn't sure what was going on until I read a little more. But yeah, what a cool thing. So, and I would venture to guess not the last of its kind in college athletics across sports going forward.
I think that's the big thing here. Like, this sets a precedent to go do. I mean, and I guess you're right. The Crown sort of is, but that's a postseason tournament. This is a preseason.
Yeah, this is one day. Tournament. This is easier. This is
like this is. I'm thinking, think about all the things you could do 3-on-3 hockey and things like that. Like, I think this is such an interesting and fascinating thing that opens up a world of opportunity for college athletics. I think this is to me far more interesting than the women playing at Wrigley. I think this is
because there's stakes,
right? There's literally stakes involved, and I think that's a big factor in it. I think the other thing that comes from this, it says that there will be a nationally televised broadcast, so it's going to be publicly available. I would assume maybe even Fox or ESPN will have it. We'll see. But yeah, I just think that this is the creativity that we've been looking for, that I think is a great move.
Well, it's interesting that you talked about 3-on-3 hockey, because when you first said it, and I hadn't thought about it, going from 5 sets to 3 makes it easier to get more to happen in one day, one setting, right? Because people don't want to invest 2 days. We're going to do this. So I don't know. Hockey 3-on-3 could probably work, right? With 4 teams represented by their players, and you get to pick your 3 at different times. Football is, you'd be there's some sports where this is more easy for this to work. And it seems like volleyball is one of the ones where it's just easiest to do. I mean, you could do a home run derby for baseball or softball, but that's a different animal, not a team competition. This has some elements that imitators will not easily be able, you can replicate, but this is different in some ways. You still get the team, you still get 4 teams that are really among the best in the nation. This is a nice thing that they created, an interesting thing that they created.
It is more reminiscent to me of what they do God, the first weekend or week of college basketball season where Duke, Kansas, Michigan State, and one other team, I can't remember what, Louisville, I think maybe, they all play each other at one arena. I think this is the type of thing. I think volleyball is one of the highest women's sport, like girls high school sports in terms of like numbers.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the type of thing, like when we talk about finding ways to grow these games and people want to tune in and be a part of these. I think this is the type of thing that we need. So yeah, kudos to them.
Yep, very much so.
Real quickly then, we also need to remind any Penn State athletic coach that's listening, if you would like to experience the Stuff Summer Says with Steve bump, which Jeff Tambroni is currently experiencing.
True that.
Come on this podcast. We'll see what happens there. They take on Army, and they have a shot to get to Charlottesville. Probably on the easier side of the bracket. Won't be easy to win it all. We'll see what they're made of. But again, if you would like to win a conference championship, go to the NCAA tournament.
One stop first.
You gotta.
Don't even have to leave your office.
Exactly. It's all. We send you a Zoom link. That's it. All right, Steve. There is one tradition that I think has bonded us above all, even before the podcast. We have both been in the pursuit of determining what time Penn State will play its football games. I do have a twist to announce at the beginning of this year. Nothing bad, nothing stressful. I want to. We are the only two that get to celebrate that bond, and I got tired of that.
Oh, okay.
So I am introducing. It will be live when this goes live, and when our article of the picks goes out. The Stuff Summer Says with Steve Kick Time Guessing League. So you will be able to go on the website, submit your answers. We will score you the same way Steve and I score you. We'll walk through the scoring here in a second. And you will...
Oh, so we're going to tell them how the score works as opposed to what they did at Blue White.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're actually going to tell them how it works.
Okay.
And you will be able to win some stuff at the end of the football season for the person that's...
podcast of the people. Good job.
Thinking. So that will be on the website. It'll be crystal clear. Now,
I don't think I have a good set here, so somebody's probably going to beat me. So
that's fair. And here's the other deal. Here's how this works. You will be able to make as many picks as are available as they come out. So get your picks in now if you want to try to get as maximum number of points. You have a week or so, about 6 days, 5 days until upfronts, which are early next week, which is why we are doing this this week. And then generally speaking, around May 30th, usually the last couple of days of May, we get the rest of the first 3 weeks in. And then you will have all the way up until the start of football season to get picks in. So, but you can get more points now by entering early. Can't enter often. I think we set a limit there. Steve, you are on mute.
It's like that bar trivia, right?
Yeah.
The sooner you answer before it's counting down. Yeah.
So keep that in mind. So yes, let us begin. Couple of ground rules. They are, of course, that Penn State will play on a Friday. So we will be picking that one, but that's something to consider. Penn State plays at Temple, which will likely be an ESPN family of games. There's that. And then, of course, the one main rule is that Penn State must appear on the Big Ten Network twice, with one of those games being in conference, unless Steve bends the rules again this year and goes off script. I sent you the rules last night for a reason.
I got the rules. I appreciate the rules. Right. I still think this is a bad set of stuff, so we'll see.
All right. There are 12 weeks, 12 football games to pick. The scoring for those scoring at home or scoring in the Kick Time Guessing League, it will be a half point for time and a half point for network. You get a quarter point if you pick NBC, and it ends up on Peacock.
Okay.
So, there we go. Marshall, the first game of the season.
Marshall, week 1, 3:30 BTN.
I have noon on FS1.
Wow, it's going to be a big game. First game of the season is going to be could decide the championship.
So, no notes on that one. I have notes on several others, but not that one. I wrestled with that. I thought noon at FS1 just felt right. The next weekend is at Temple. be the first trip since the Christian Hackenberg 19 sack game that I have. Yeah, I think everybody has PTSD from that one. I wrote down noon ESPN2 on that one.
That's exactly what I wrote. Okay. See, that first game is going to determine the championship.
Okay. It just feels, I don't know, it didn't feel ESPN proper, but felt noon.
Penn State,
ESPN,
it's East Coast.
Wasn't
not sticking on ESPNU.
Yeah, I think that's
Amanda, if you're listening this far into the broadcast, there you go. Feel free to bring us the game. We'll come do a live broadcast from Temple for you.
You know, the stuff Summer says with Steve game day. Okay. The next one, Buffalo,
the 19th of September. I think this is going to be a rough year for noon games, so I made that 3:30 on Fox Sports 1.
Okay, we are flip-flopped. I have 3:30 on BTN. Fun fact about this game. I went back and looked at your spreadsheet, Steve's spreadsheet, which is on the website. You can take a look at. Used it for my research today. That 2019 game, which was the Andy Kotelnicki game, and then the last time they were here, that game was on Fox.
Well, Fox does sometimes pick up a non-con game.
It was night. It was weird.
I know, and that scares me about those weird non-con games that, God forbid, like it's some kind of 6 o'clock BTN game or some crazy thing like that for one of those early ones. We'll see.
We get into the conference slate then with Wisconsin. And
they're starting at home.
They're starting at home. Pat Kraft saved them all. Thank you, Pat Kraft. I struggled with this one. It's homecoming, and not since the 9 overtime homecoming game in 2021 has there been a noon homecoming game. But it felt natural and obvious to me that this would be a noon Fox game because Matt Campbell's coming out party, if you will, for viewers on Fox, and it just made a lot of sense, especially looking at like what else is that week. There. Do you disagree? You seem to disagree.
Oh, I totally disagreed. But I like your logic. I couldn't see Wisconsin, even though it was the conference opener, being a big noon game. I mean, I guess it doesn't need to be a big noon game just because it's noon on Fox. Because
that's true. It could be whatever.
So I said 3:30 CBS, which didn't feel like it was worth it either. But it depends on who has the week and the picks from the broadcast part.
So that was what was tripping me up because Notre Dame plays at Purdue that weekend. So in theory, that could be NBC, but that felt CBS. That felt more CBS to me. And then Oregon at USC is also that weekend, and to me, that felt NBC, like night game. Like that just
depends on who has them. Yeah.
So that is why I went with that. That's that's that one. The next weekend, as we mentioned, is a Friday night game. I think this is Penn State's first Friday night game since like 2023. I can't remember. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. And that one will open up Ryan Field, the new Ryan Field. So I think that's important. I was curious because this is right around the time baseball playoffs, but I believe the baseball regular season is like wrapping up like literally that day. I went with Fox and I went with 8 p.m.
7:30 Fox.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the same thing. I mean, I looked. Baseball is later. World Series is later. It's Chicago. It's the new stadium. It's a Friday night. It's better than Fox Sports 1.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It feels like Tim Brando is also calling that game. That I can call that bonus point. Okay. And then we get to the big home game. And I struggled with where to put this one initially because of the UCLA and Oregon game that day. But when I kind of sat down and thought about it, it just feels obvious that this is going to be a night game on NBC at 7:30 when Penn State, and we assume the whiteout when Penn State hosts USC.
That's what I had.
Okay. Look at us. So we then get to what I think is probably the third most interesting game of the season on the Big Ten slate. I wrote down 5 games that I thought were interesting because this is important to context, right? The The first 3 picks we generally believe go to Fox.
Oh, so this will be a differentiator too.
Yes. And so I thought about this and was thinking it through, and then I was looking at the schedule. So the 5 games that jumped out to me in terms of 5 most interesting games overall are Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State at Michigan, Ohio State at Indiana, Oregon at Ohio State, and USC at Indiana. For whatever reason, and I do not understand this, and I don't think they were paying attention when they scheduled these games, Ohio State plays Indiana that same day that Penn State plays Michigan. These are the 5 most interesting games of the Big Ten season. And honestly, with that 5th one, USC at Indiana, like there's a drop off between 4 to 5. And then I don't understand why they scheduled these games on the same day if this is the one of the premier matchups. Generally speaking, this is one of the top 10, 15 highest rated football games of the year. But because of that Ohio State game at Indiana, even if Indiana isn't as good as what they were last year, and I don't think they are, I think that goes to Fox, and I think this is a Penn State, Michigan is a CBS 3:30 game.
Exactly what I have for the same reasoning. Ohio State, Indiana is noon on Fox.
I think it's too much of a draw. You've got 2 big alumni bases. Not that Penn State and Michigan don't have big alumni bases by any means. I just think this is probably the game above all besides the game that is circled. Really,
no, because the noon Ohio State game is going to get you a number, and Penn State, Michigan, we'll get them a number. In the afternoon, but not quite as big a number.
Okay. Then we go to Halloween, and I really struggled with this one. Penn State hosts Purdue. I went with 12 noon on Peacock, and Bill and Linda are upset.
It's funny. I did 12 noon, but I'm BTN. I'll get my Peacock game later.
Okay. Penn State doesn't have to appear on Peacock. There are about 8 Peacock slots, and I think every year now that they've done the Peacock thing, they have appeared on Peacock at least once. So keep that in mind as you are doing, again, the Kick Time Guessing League. The big road game of the year is Penn State going to Washington. This one feels pretty obvious for where it sits in. You've got Michigan playing Michigan State. I had that at noon. You've got Oregon at Ohio State. That feels like it's going to be at night. So what are you going to put at 3:30? Penn State at Washington on CBS.
I did 7:30 on NBC. Hopefully one of these games is going to get in the good network, because I know I have 2 on NBC at 7:30. I just want one of them to be with the best broadcast team. So this was biased in that way. I went out west. I know what else is happening that day, but we'll see.
Okay. I think that's fair. I struggled with the next one. Which is Minnesota. Michigan at Oregon that weekend. USC at Indiana. I picked noon on Fox for the Minnesota game, and
then these numbers are, somebody's getting their butt kicked, and it's probably me. 7:00 on Peacock.
You know what? That's not unreasonable. I can
stick kind of like the Iowa game last year, like this game late in the season. That's
What are we gonna do with it? It's very much and I just, there wasn't that much interesting that day in general, and I don't know. I just felt like Indiana really, like the US. I struggled with USC playing at noon at Indiana. So that was the main reason. Not that it didn't happen with UCLA at Penn State a few years ago, but nonetheless. For the Rutgers game, did you know that 9 of the last 11 Rutgers games have been on BTN?
Might be more than that then.
So, in my mind, 10 of 12 are going to be on BTN.
I didn't check my spreadsheet.
4 p.m. I have it at 4 p.m. I think this is going to be the 4 p.m. pick.
I did 3:30 Fox Sports 1.
Okay. So, general same vibe.
Yes.
Very minor difference.
Just who gets it handed to them, yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean general? It's not a minor difference. That's a full point difference for somebody. So
that's fair. I mean,
it's going to look close on the field, but bad in the standings.
It's fair. All right. Last game of the year at Maryland. I went with 3:30
BTN.
I went FS1.
Okay, there we go. So we're all sniffing.
We are not as consistent as we were last year. Go ahead.
Yeah, but somebody's going to be fairly right between the two of them. Maybe both of us in some ways. And it's interesting in the amount of thoughts and hours that maybe they don't like that would be good to know sometimes. Like, are you really this into it, or is it just like, okay, these are the 5 games with it, as you said, these are the 5 games that make a difference and are going to draw a number. The rest of them are all kind of the same. Let's throw them somebody so somebody has something on TV.
I think we think about this more than Tony Peretti. Like I think we do.
Well, he wouldn't talk about it if he did, so it doesn't matter.
I'm interested to see. I'm proud of us for having very different picks last year. Last year we had like pretty much the same picks for most of the season, and we were right on the first 4 games, at least in terms of time. One of us will be wrong at some point for sure.
In a big way, yeah.
So proud of us there.
And listen to all that free advice that's worth maybe something or nothing as you put together your kick time
guessing
KTGL picks.
There's a logo and everything. Don't worry.
Oh, good. I can't wait. It's great.
All right. That's this week's podcast. We'll have this in written form as well. Some of the similar same logic there. And like I said, we'll do this. I don't know. I just figured why us only have the joy? Why not share the joy, you know?
Exactly.
We're men of the people. Thanks to Joe Starkey for joining us. That's this week's podcast.
You have an old guy, young guy?
Sorry. Oh, you're right. We do need to talk about your old guy, young guy, which is not really that. I mean, not really that.
I forgot it was my old guy, young guy. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I mean, it is interesting. Steve went viral on Twitter last week for what?
Forgot about that. For a picture of a beer sign. So if you haven't seen it, there's a store selling beer downtown in State College. You can buy 1 16-ounce can of alcohol for $1, or you can buy 12 of them for $13. Which, when I saw it, I texted Darian and Russ and said, that's interesting math. And then a second later, I'm like, I'll share it with the world. That's interesting math. Turns out the world thought it was interesting math too. So
it took me a minute to figure it out. I thought that he was remarking at the fact that there's Bud Light branded cans now when he sent it. And then I was like, oh, yes, I do see that math. Do you think the extra $1 is just because of the cardboard?
Some people do think that. I guess. I mean, how else are you going to carry 12?
A lot of people were arguing. I was reading the comments. A lot of people were like, how are you? Yep. That's a premium benefit, I guess, of carrying beer.
But at the same time, like I've never, it's rare that I see if you buy one that a dozen isn't cheaper per unit.
Why not $1.50? You know? Also, what a great deal. I mean, 16 ounces of beer for $1. You don't even get your Genesee for that cheap.
No, it's tough. That's true. Not at 16 ounces. That's true. So yeah, but apparently the internet world liked it. 850,000 views worth, which was just very surprising.
Steve apologized to me for not. I'm like, I don't care that you didn't tag me. I think I'm very proud of you. You know.
Yeah. Didn't do a thing.
I go viral for sharing some other guy running out the tunnel. Steve goes viral for sharing beer prices. That's the hard hitting journalism you get from us. You know,
that's
what
true.
All you listeners, all you viewers are paying for. Okay. Now can I wrap up the show? Am I good?
Yes, please. So good.
Okay. Thanks to Joe for joining us. If you want to look at our guesses or take part in the Kick Time Guessing League, stuffsummersays.com. Also on that website, there's a section called With
Steve.
We've got a podcast, which you just listened to. Make sure to give it 5 stars or thumbs up. We've got emails. Mine's Darian at stuffsummersays.com. Steve, did anyone email you a selfie last week? Because I forgot.
Did not get any selfies.
No selfies. So sorry, nope. Steve.
I learned how to check my email.
He did learn how to check his email. I had to reset the password. So there's that. What is that email?
Steve at stuffsummersays.com.
Perfect. Great. Lastly, you can find me on the internet at Stuff Summer Says. You can find Steve
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.